Is Devil May Cry still a good game 20 years later? Let's talk about that.
Back in 2001, during the development of Resident Evil 4, the developers were like, you know what? This game sucks. Let's do something else. The creator of Resident Evil had new ideas that were considered too different to be implemented into the new game at the time, so he went off to make a completely original game that would eventually become Devil May Cry. It would release in August of 2001 to pretty good reception, enough to get 4 sequels, a reboot, and hopefully more to come, but little did people know that Devil May Cry would lay the groundwork for almost every modern action game since its release. I'll get more into the specifics later, but this game practically made the term hack and slash or spectacle action game. Back in my Ghost Rider video, I implied that the game took a lot of inspiration from the God of War series, but it goes back even further than that, all the way back to Devil May Cry.
This is the first time on this channel that I'm jumping into a series that I have never touched before. I've got some general knowledge, but this will be my first step into Devil May Cry. So, let's see how it holds up.
Let's rock, baby.
I'll be playing the game through the HD collection on the PS5, because as far as I'm aware, this is the best version of the game. I know that the Switch version of Devil May Cry 3 specifically has additional content to make the Switch version the best to play, but I'm pretty sure for DMC 1 and 2, any version of the HD collection is fine. The game starts with this opening crawl over some dude dancing in fire. It says that in this universe, the human world is at war with the underworld and its demons, but then one of the demons, known as Sparda, as to quote the game, awakens to justice, and he fights off and seals the underworld away. He would then reside over the human world and protect it until his death. The game then cuts to some lady named Trish, dropping from the sky and arriving at Devil May Cry, a demon hunting establishment hosted by our main protagonist, Dante. Dante is the son of Sparda, so he's half human, half demon, and as we'll soon find out, he's pretty freaking strong. Trish busts in and says that there's this powerful demon dude named Mundus that is once again trying to gain control of the human world, and she needs Dante's help to stop him. After attacking him, Dante reluctantly agrees to help because Trish knows his past, and she bears a striking resemblance to Dante's deceased mother. Trish and Dante show up at this castle and Dante is all like, Trish just kinda leaves, and at this point the story takes a huge backseat and the rest of the game is just Dante exploring the castle. And I'll give the game this: it nails the atmosphere of the castle and the general dark and gothic setting of the game. Dante will interact with a boss every now and then, but other than that, the story just kinda pauses until the end of the game. Other games like God of War kinda have a similar problem with the story not keeping me engaged and wanting to play, but fortunately I didn't get that problem with this game due to its short length. My runtime at the end was about 5 hours and I was entertained with the gameplay throughout the entire experience. There's a tiny bit more story sprinkled in throughout the game. I don't remember exactly when it happens, but it's revealed that Dante had a brother named Virgil, and that he and their mother were killed by Mundus. This adds extra reasoning as to why Dante went along with Trish so easily. Early on in the game, you'll run into this Dark Knight boss that mirrors your moveset. After you beat him the 3rd time late in the game, he'll drop the other half of Dante's pendant that he got from his mother, implying that the Dark Knight is Dante's brother Virgil. Eventually, Dante will enter a portal to the underworld. While there, Trish appears again and betrays him. It's revealed that Trish was created by Mundus specifically to look like Dante's mother in order to lure him to the underworld. Despite being stabbed in the back, Dante still saves her from being crushed by some rubble, and this makes Trish question her allegiance to Mundus.
But Mom, he's hot.
Dante and Trish's relationship is really fucking weird because they've only known each other for less than a day, but they act all lovey-dovey and it doesn't make any sense. Dante confronts Mundus, who appears as a giant statue. Mundus shoots a death laser, but Trish takes the bullet and dies? Dante and Mundus go to Super Space, and Dante has a Super Devil transformation and takes out Mundus easily. Dante then goes over to Trish's body and gives her his pendant.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
Dante has to escape the castle before it explodes, but he runs into Mundus one more time. Trish comes back and assists Dante by giving him some of her power.
What?
Dante easily defeats Mundus again, and he and Trish escape the castle as it explodes. The game ends with Dante and Trish teaming up at his new demon hunting business, being renamed Devil Never Cry.
That's a stupid name.
So is no checkpoint.
Hey, fuck you!
The game is split up into about 20-ish missions that you have to complete to finish the game. It's odd because the world is interconnected throughout all the missions, meaning that you can go off the main path and go wherever you want at any point in the game. This could potentially lead to confusion or getting lost, but I think that the game does a good enough job of pushing you in the right direction, so I never had any issues with it. The game does reward exploration with extra goodies like red or blue orbs. The main gameplay throughout most of the game is combat. Dante starts off with just a basic sword and his dual pistols, but you'll get more weapons pretty quickly, such as a lightning sword called Alistair or a shotgun. Dante has melee attacks and ranged attacks that you need to mix together to do as much damage as possible and keep your combo meter up. The combo meter works a lot like it did in the Ghost Rider game. With the higher it going, the more red orbs you'll receive from killing enemies. Variety is crucial to getting the meter up, so be sure to mix up your combat strategies. This isn't very easy, however, because Dante only has one combo per weapon, so you'll end up doing the same things over and over again. The only time I would ever do something different was against specific enemy types. For example, I would spam the shotgun against these Grim Reaper guys, and I would always switch to the fire gauntlets against these fast little dudes. After each mission, or when you find these little hourglass things, you can access the shop where you can spend your red orbs on upgrades for your attacks or items, such as blue orbs which increase your health, or these green star things which fully restore your health, among other things. After you get the lightning sword, Dante gains access to his Devil Trigger. Devil Trigger is a brief power-up that increases Dante's damage and speed and gives him access to certain special moves. For example, Dante gets this move where he flies around and shoots lightning at enemies. Devil Trigger is completely overpowered and breaks the game in half. It makes all normal enemies go down in a few hits and absolutely deletes boss health bars, especially with the lightning attack. The Devil Trigger is tied to what weapon you have equipped, so later on when you get the true Sparta Blade, it doesn't have a Devil Trigger, so I immediately switch back to the Lightning Sword just because the Devil Trigger is so useful. For the most part, I think the combat works, but it isn't exactly graceful. For one, the game doesn't teach you anything, so you just kinda gotta figure out what the game wants from you, and that tripped me up early on. Like, I found out that if you wait a second in between each attack that you'll do different moves, like in Bayonetta. Another thing is this game doesn't have a dedicated defense mechanic. Dante does have a dodge, but you can only use it if you're locked on to an enemy, and even then it doesn't feel smooth. Dante doesn't have a block either, so I found myself jumping around or tanking hits in Devil Trigger mode, since you regain health and don't flinch to enemy attacks when Devil Trigger is active. This makes the game pretty difficult. It's nothing absolutely crazy, but it will test you, so you gotta stay focused the entire time, especially against the bosses. There are only 4 bosses in the game, not including Mundus. You've got Big Fire Spider, Dark Knight Virgil, Bird, and the gooey-ass nightmare thing.
Now that may not sound like a lot, but here's the thing. You fight every boss three times.
They start off pretty easy, but then starting on the second encounter, they start giving you shit. The spider starts blocking attacks. The bird starts flying around and shooting lasers. Dark Knight Virgil starts going off with some pro player wombo combo shit.
Wombo combo! That ain't Falco! That ain't Falco!
And the nightmare boss gets the worst of it due to the damn camera and the finicky targeting. In order to damage Nightmare, you have to hit these sign things on the walls, but if you're not right up against it, then Dante will turn around and hit in the direction of the boss. Nightmare also has this goo attack where if you get caught, you have to fight one of the previous bosses again, and then after that, you still have to kill the Nightmare. After that, we finally got Mundus, and
I don't even care.
it's alright. Dante turns into Super Devil Trigger Dante, and it's an on-rails shooter or whatever this is called. And then the second phase gets destroyed easily with the Super Devil Trigger.
Wow, that game was... I did like it though.
The overall package for the game was pretty meh. The story was forgettable, the combat was serviceable, and the game is so short that it's over within a blink of an eye. Despite all that, I will always have respect for this game for what it brought to the action game genre. Without Devil May Cry, we wouldn't have God of War, or Bayonetta, or Metal Gear Rising, or Ghost Rider. All of these games take some inspiration from Devil May Cry. God of War and Bayonetta both get more weapons throughout their journeys. Bayonetta's shop system is almost one-to-one ripped from the ideas of Devil May Cry's shop, and there are so many more examples. All of these ideas and mechanics were popularized by Devil May Cry and continue to be used in action games today. Grandpa, why are you talking about some old-ass game from your childhood?
This game came out a whole year before I was even born. And I don't have any kids, let alone grandchildren. Who are you people?